Shalom, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to the Jewish Community Resilience and Growth webinar, 18 years after the Holocaust. Before we begin, thank you for your patience. We're beginning with a little bit delay of 5 minutes, but we're excited to have remarkable speakers today, and hopefully this conversation will be interesting and valuable to all of you and of course all of us. Before we begin, allow me to thank our partners, of course, Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, J. Reddy, and the Jewish Agency for Israel. Before our webinar, there are several people we're privileged enough to have them with us. And the first would be Director General of the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, ladies and gentlemen, Avi Cohen-Scali, please.
These are historic times, and the world is changing before our eyes. Since October 7, 2023, we, the State of Israel, are fighting for our lives, and now we are focusing on bringing our hostages home. At the very same time, Jews in the diaspora are living forward a massive increase of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism has become more dangerous, and the Jews everywhere are feeling much less secure. The State of Israel feels responsible for the well-being of Jews all over the world, and we are investing significant resources, budget, and time to help with this national mission of increasing the safety for the Jews. The safety of Jewish people everywhere is a matter of national importance, and it has direct impact on the ability of Jews to live healthy and happy lives all over. This is the time to take another step forward. I am happy that you are doing that. I am so proud of every one of you who invest your time and resources to keep the Jewish people safe and help in flourish. Please feel free to share with us your insight, and really, I really mean it. Know that you can rely on us too for help. We are here together and we are one people.
Thank you very much, Avi Cohen-Scali, Director General of Ministry of Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism. I'm honored to invite our next speaker to say his words of blessing, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Wilf, Chairman of the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency for Israel. Mark, please.
Thank you, Rabbi. I'm honored, friends, today and grateful for the opportunity to open this webinar initiated by the Jewish Agency's J. Reddy platform, marking International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Today's webinar is part of a series aimed at helping community leaders and professionals in Jewish communities around the world, help them address the wave of anti-Semitism currently sweeping the world. As the child of Holocaust survivors who rebuilt their lives in the United States, I appreciate, particularly today, that we will focus on identity, belonging, and hope, alongside remembering the 6 million who perished at the hands of the Nazis and their collaborators. Today, we are honoring the heroism of those who fought, survived, and rose from the ashes of the Holocaust. Despite the dark days our people endured, today we also acknowledge the flourishing Jewish communities and vibrant Jewish life that exists around the globe. For almost 80 years, we used the term never again. And then we've witnessed yet another dark hour on October 7th. The brutal attack of October 7th brought not only immense grief over the loss of civilian and military lives and the abduction of some 250 civilians, 90 of them are still held in captivity, but also an overwhelming wave of hatred sweeping across the world. Jewish communities found themselves on another front. On US campuses, we have witnessed deeply troubling scenes and events, and the same is true in Canada, Latin America, Europe, South Africa, and Australia. Sadly, attempts to harm Jews and Israelis worldwide have become a regular feature of international news reports. Even in these times, the Jewish Agency for Israel, which I'm privileged and proud to be chairing its board of governors, seeks to strengthen Israeli society and Jewish communities, helping us all find hope. We have set a goal to ensure that every Jew worldwide who wishes to participate in rebuilding Israel after October 7th can do so. In addition to rebuilding Israel and supporting the victims, we aim to expand the mutual support between Israel and Jewish communities and to enhance the security and resilience of Jewish communities worldwide. On this International Holocaust Remembrance Day 2025, we all remember the 6 million Holocaust victims. We embrace the families who lost their loved ones on October 7th and during the military campaign to defend our homeland. We all join in prayer for the safe return of the hostages. Am Yisrael Chai.
Amen. Mark, thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership. Last but not least, Ayelet Nachmias-Verben, the chair of J-Ready. Ayelet, please.
Thank you, Vadim, for the introduction. Thank you, Mark Wilf, the chair of the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency, for your incredible support of J-Ready and the Fund for the Victims of Terror of the Jewish Agency, both which I chair. Thank you, Avi Cohen-Scali, the General Director of the Ministry of Diaspora, for the partnership in J-Ready. We will do so much more together. We're here today, 80 years after the liberation of our people from Auschwitz. Hell on earth. Over these 8 decades, the Jewish people have learned to mourn, support one another, persevere, rise and thrive everywhere in the world. This thriving has been made possible thanks to the individuals and communities who worked tirelessly, never gave up, and fostered a strong Jewish identity, a meaningful sense of belonging to the local and communal story, and hope, an abundance of hope. Sadly, we still witness anti-Semitism rearing its head today, especially after October 7th, trying to harm our communities and destabilize us. Yet today, we all stand here together, strong and united against it, maybe stronger than ever before. Beyond traditional anti-Semitism that has resurfaced, Jewish communities are in many ways paying the price for their connection to Israel. This happens on North American campuses, in Jewish businesses around the world, in public spaces, and in both traditional and digital media. This is precisely our mission at J-Ready. Over the past 4 years, and even more so since October 7th, we have been working to strengthen the resilience and capacity of communities to face whatever challenges arise so we can continue together as one people. I would like to thank our partners in the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs and express my appreciation for this webinar and the series of webinars addressing how communities are coping with anti-Semitic events. I want to thank Ariella, Shuki, and Naomi for the wisdom and experience they are sharing with us. And of course, last but not least, I want to thank my team at J-Ready, Yael Raz, Samantha Robinson, Leo Sharir, Gali Ophir, and of course, our new incoming director, Shirley Gill-Rice. Just always remember, as I always say, J-Ready is here for you. Please make the best of the experience that we share in Israel and all around the world in our communities. Thank you.
Ayelet, thank you very much. And this is an opportunity to thank all your remarkable team at J-Ready, at the Jewish Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll use a moment just to say that because of the limits or the opportunities of this technological platform, we cannot see your faces. But I would like to encourage you to write your thoughts, your questions, your remarks, as all of our 3 speakers, Ayelet and Mark and Avi, address the personal and the doing, the things that we can do separately and collectively. I would like to encourage you maybe share your stories, your questions, your ideas, and hopefully we'll be able and have enough time to voice them and to invite our speakers to address them. All right, I think it's time to get to the question. So we thought in the short time we have together on this special day to address 3 issues: identity, belonging, and hope. And starting with identity, I'd like to address our 3 speakers. Naomi Desegni, Ariela Reuenberg and Joshua Hamiel, which I think for all of us, there is more than one way to read our both names and family names. So my first question to you, we all know and familiar with the several researchers, in-depth researchers that were published in the recent years, Pew, JPR, and others, about global Jewry and local communities that are represented here. And it seems that for most of the Jews we are serving, the memory of the Holocaust is playing a dominant and very important role in their Jewishness, in the way they see themselves as Jews. So my question to you, could you please give an examples? How do you continue and maintain that memory alive, but also in the same time, not creating victimized identity, negative identity that only shows that, oh, everyone hates us, or those are the atrocities that happened to us? How do you balance the memory and the sense of identity and resilience? Naomi, maybe we'll start with you, and if you could maybe say a few words about who you are for those who are yet to be familiar with your remarkable work.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am the president of the Union of Jewish Communities in Italy. We have 21 communities, and all over it's about 25,000 Jews all over Italy. Very small minority, but very relevant in terms of more than 2,000 years of presence in Italy. So going to your question, in fact, the purpose is exactly this, is to highlight in Italian society, and especially on days like this, like Memorial Day, that Jews have been part of Italy and Italian culture through the history, building Italy, participating to all the phases that characterize Italian and European history. And we are not only the Jews victims of the Shoah, like we were in Egypt, crossed the desert, and then the Shoah. This is not, of course, the history of Jewish people. And our challenge is to put the specificity of the Holocaust of the Jews in Italy, which is different from other countries in Europe. So it's also to understand what happened here during the Shoah, but adding in all the courses and all the meetings, and especially in schools, a specific presentation of Italian culture, Jewish culture, and the presence of Jews all over the history in Italy, exactly to foster the message that you were highlighting.
Thank you so much. Ariela, what's your point of view and how your community deals? And also, if you could please, a few words for those who are yet familiar with your wonderful work.
Sure. Thank you, Rabbi. It's an honor to be here on International Holocaust Remembrance Day and the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. I'm the chair of Jewish Federations of Canada, United Israel Appeal, so a national organization across Canada. The historical legacy of the Holocaust is really strongly connected to the lived Jewish experience in Canada. While the level of anti-Semitism since October 7th is pervasive, it really created a resurgence and a commitment to Jewish identity and a bond with Israel that really has as its foundation our community's connection to the Shoah legacy. It's often said that the Jewish community in Canada is about a generation behind the US, in part because about 40,000 Holocaust survivors came to Canada, primarily to Toronto and Montreal. My husband and I are both children of survivors. My husband grew up in a small town and experienced significant anti-Semitism. I grew up in an area of Toronto that was like a little shtetl filled with survivors, and I experienced no anti-Semitism. It's really, I think, natural for children of survivors to feel more connected to the Shoah. And I think that strengthened our community in Canada, our Jewish community. We recently opened a new Toronto Holocaust Museum, which was a very thoughtful process. And we have selective survivor testimony there, and made the decision not to show an overwhelming images of emaciated prisoners or bodies. And those intentional choices deviate from the old way of teaching about the Holocaust with horrifying images, which we feel re-victimizes the victims and doesn't necessarily build understanding and empathy. So the museum also felt that personal storytelling through survivor testimony was really the way to keep the memories of the Shoah alive for future generations. It's also located, this museum, in a Jewish community center, which means that visitors who enter have to see a vibrant Jewish life before they witness the museum. And I think that embodies resilience. They see the post-visit reflections that are shared with us by students and adult groups is that they saw humanity, resilience, strength, and not just death and victimization by their experience in visiting this museum. We also now have an exhibit that just started this month at the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto that is called Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away. And a significant amount of the monies to fund this was donated by non-Jews. The provincial government has also funded certain days to the public that have no cost of entry, and all student groups throughout the duration of the exhibit can come and see it. So we've been commemorating Holocaust Remembrance Day, and we have activities or events at the Royal Ontario Museum, and also we had it at the Holocaust Museum. I think it's important that to keep the memory of the Holocaust alive, we have to ensure that those remembrance activities speak to the next generation. So innovation and reinvention is really top of mind. Many of the provinces across Canada have Holocaust education mandates. Unfortunately, Quebec does not. But in Ontario, grade 10 Holocaust is taught in the curriculum, and it's being strengthened now, and also anti-Semitism added to the curriculum. And a couple of years ago, 2023, Ontario also included now in grade 6 studies, Holocaust studies in the history of Jews. So we are expanding in knowledge of the Holocaust in many different ways, and that includes, of course, Jewish education and Jewish camps.
Ariella, thank you so much. And you're bringing extremely important issues. What you shared with us regarding the museum and the survivors' testimonies. We might be the last generation, or our kids, the last generation, who actually can have a dialogue, ask questions, really meet in person a survivor, and the questions also of education and Holocaust education. Also, do we focus on Jewish kids, non-Jewish kids, etc. Very, very well. Thank you so much, Ariella. Joshua, guten Abend.
Good evening, Rabbi.
Also, your perspective. And if you could please say a few words about the German Jewish community in München and your role, your leadership role within the community, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I'm the vice president of the Munich Jewish community, which is the biggest one in Germany with 10,000 members. We here in Germany have a special responsibility to deal with Holocaust remembrance. On the one hand, this remembrance must be upheld in the non-Jewish community in order to remind the German people of the lessons to be learned as a democratic, liberal society, in order to never let something like the Shoah happen again. What must be done without accusation, so that a generation that can in no way be held responsible for the Shoah does not feel unjustly guilty. The best way to convey this is through contemporary witnesses who are still alive today, and through never-ending efforts to bring lessons about the Shoah into schools and universities for all the non-Jews. It is important for our own communities to adopt a different perspective. We must remember the victims and honor their memories. But we must not feel victimized by the Shoah. We try to convey the opposite. The Shoah is a further test over the millennia of what it means to be Jewish. We try to make it clear to our children, and not only to them, but to all of our community's members through stories, narratives, and discussions, that we have emerged stronger from this unspeakable event of the Shoah. Just as every time we have been defeated as an entire people, starting with the exodus from Egypt, Purim, the defeat of the first Hitler, Haman, and countless other times in our history. And each time we have risen stronger and stronger enough. So we start this topic from elementary school to high school to various lectures, discussion, which were held throughout the whole year. And for us here in Germany, we feel that we have this special responsibility because we came back. I am a son of survivors. I was born in Israel and I raised up in Germany. And to come back has to show the world that Jews overcome every effort to eliminate them. So it's so important this day to remember, but it's also so important to look for a future and to show the strongness of the Jewish people.
Yeah, sure. Vielen Dank. Toda rabba. If I may, let's go back and to you, if I may. As an educator, and it doesn't matter what paradigm of education we believe in, whether it's initiation, integration, or freedom, whether we talk about formal or informal frameworks of education, they're always the ABC, the affectionate behavior cognitive, right? We want them to know things, whether it's kids or adult education, one emotional, right, or doing things. And when one analyzes the establishment that responsible in Israel, for example, for Holocaust education, you see that in many cases the emphasis is made, look what happened to us as a people when we had no power, right? And when you go, and I think, Ariella, you mentioned the Canadian Museum of Holocaust, of course, the one in the States, DC, and the recent years in Europe, there's another emphasis made, saying, look what happened to a people with power. And especially after this difficult year, since October the 7th, I wonder, could you share with us, in your community, in Italy, what are the emphasis and what are the narratives, the stories? Right, if Clifford Gretz said that we become the sum of the story we tell to ourselves about ourselves. What are the story? What are the lessons that you're bringing forward when you deal with the memory of Holocaust? And regarding the 7th of October, I frequently find people using the word Holocaust or the examples or the metaphors of Holocaust while describing the atrocities of the 7th of October. What do you think about that comparison? Grazie.
Thank you. So it's a challenge that goes in different routes and ways, and depends if it's towards our communities, within our communities, and our youth especially, and what we are trying to communicate with Italian society. We are not the Israeli embassy. And this is one of the issues which is tricky, because we want to, of course, express all the support and help and of course, desperation for what happened on the 7th of October, but not only all the support to Israel, but also understanding that Jewish communities is in a relation with Israel, but is not Israel directly. And it's very, very delicate So, of course, the effort is trying to highlight what are the values, the Jewish values that support the choices that have been made also in this very, very tough months of the war. Highlight that we are fighting for life in all the occasions and all the situations. The fight for life is the fil rouge that has characterized all the intervention, and this is our culture. And I think this value of life is also regarding the Shoah and after the Shoah, and this is the main maybe Jewish value that is guiding us on everything that is being done. On the use of terms of the Shoah, on the 7th, of course, we were appalled if this is used to accuse Israel and Israelis, but we heard a lot of testimonies using the references to the Shoah because, of course, what could be the worst reference horror, if not the Shoah, to pick from and use it to describe such a horrifying moment like the 7th of October. So it's understandable. Then, of course, there are some still differences, but we are trying also in Italian society to make people understand, and this is important to be highlighted, that is not the Shoah, but still there is a plan to destroy Israel and the Jewish people. Someone is working on it, someone is financing it, someone wants it, and it's not in Europe, but the same mentality will reach Europe and be rooted in Europe if we are not vigilant on European values, not Jewish values, but European and Italian constitutional principle that should not be abused. So 80 years after the Shoah, the real challenge is to understand what kind of society we have built in Italy and in Europe. How can it really be safeguarding these values and not having holes from which people inside or outside Europe are trying to abuse and suffocate the system.
Grazie mille. And it's remarkable how all across Europe, I'm the Jewish Agency representative in London. So I think, Ariella, you mentioned earlier also, like Naomi, the anti-Semitism that we experienced since October the 7th all across Europe. And it's fascinating to see how European societies, as you said, Naomi, not necessarily Jewish, but European societies saying, wait, how do we defend our values? How do we, on one hand, allow the freedoms that we fought so much for, freedom of speech, etc., but then again, not allowing anyone to abuse those values against us and ruin the fabric of our society, of our culture, of our democracy by itself. Yeah, big challenges. Ariella?
With challenge come opportunities, I think, as well. First, to respond to your question about the power imbalances, the Holocaust Museum, as I was talking about before, the testimonials reflect that during the Shoah, Jewish people were in positions of power and everyday people. And the point is that Jews were diverse, just as they are today. Like everywhere, Jewish life in Canada is changing at a rapid pace. October 7th was an enormous change agent for our community. The subsequent war in Gaza had the domino effect of increasing anti-Semitism and all that that entails with the campus protests and fear and anxiety and Jewish institutions, businesses, neighborhoods being under assault. But those same events did definitely fuel an explosion in Jewish belonging and communal participation on a historic level. On October 7th, sometimes it's said that Jews that forgot they were Jewish remembered that they were Jewish. And that's reflected in our community. The people are more invested in their identity and community. They're looking for ways to connect. It drives engagement and membership in Jewish life. Under-affiliated Jews in our community are not the only ones seeking greater engagement. Those that were very involved, they've stepped up big time as well, asking for more from Jewish communal organizations. Significant dollars have been raised from both these groups, not only for the Israel emergency and rebuilding Israel, obviously, but for domestic needs and fighting anti-Semitism, providing security for local communities. We've raised over $140 million in Canada, and that's 3.5 times per capita what has been raised in any other country. And I think it reflects the commitment to Jewish life in our country. An example, applications for Jewish day schools have now greatly exceeded supply. This started during COVID, but after October 7th, we realized that the demand is so significant that it's not a blip. We need greater infrastructure in order to be able to accommodate this significant demand. And while Jews in Canada represent less than 1% of our population, the data shows that the majority of Canadians are supportive of Israel and the Jewish people. And so this has resulted in a lot of alliance associations, and including a major organization that started that's being headed by a Canadian former military general. All kinds of organizations, new and old, are devoted to changing the landscape of Jew hatred. And the quest for Jewish belonging is really the engine that's driving these initiatives. Engagement, it's off the charts. Toronto has a population of about 200,000 Jews, and the Walk for Israel last spring had about 50,000 Jews come out for the walk. That's about double what we would typically get. The same happened across Canada for the walk. And it's just attendance at all events have increased. And I think that's evidence of the shift in the paradigm of belonging Jewishly. It demonstrates resilience and hope for sure. While we're living through the most difficult times we've faced in decades, today we have a Jewish homeland, and that definitely impacts the power balance of our people. So the challenge is now, how does the organized community respond in a way that secures the Jewish future going forward? And I want to answer your question about the use of the term Holocaust as well. I don't believe that that term should be used in reference to October 7th. Obviously, that was, the single largest murder of Jews since the Holocaust. But the Holocaust was a singular event, and it should stand alone. It's not a point of comparison or a parallel. Any kind of analogies open up the door for others to use it likewise, and that's a very bad thing. There was an Instagram post of a Palestinian standing in front of rubble with the caption, "I am a Holocaust survivor." That cements my position.
Wow. Ariella, thank you so much. I want to encourage our audience with sending remarkable remarks and questions, and I hope we have enough time to address at least some of them. But Yoshua, to you, about narratives of belonging and the uses of the language and metaphors in context of 7th of October. Could you share your thoughts, your experience?
So first of all, I think the most important thing today in education, and to answer your question, is the personal resilience. What does it mean for Jews, for Jewish people in a community? And what is our message as a community? For us, resilience means acceptance. It means optimism and hope. It means self-efficiency, responsibility, networking, and solution finding and future finding. Because all these words together, that's what we want to achieve for our communities and what we want to give our children as an education. By creating an all-encompassing community with these terms mentioned before, we try to create a Jewish identity, an identity which can stand in today's world. For all those who are Jews in the halachic means, and even if they don't feel they belong to the religion because they are atheists, It's for all of them. That's what resilience means for us as a community. So it's not about saying what exactly can happen with power or without power. It's more about creating a sense of being a community that you can feel part of, and then you are relatively safe because you are not alone. Even in the biggest darkness, you are not alone. There are lights beside you, your community. But if you belong to a community, you are obliged to give in order to receive. The necessary support to achieve personal resilience. So community is not a one-way street. It is the responsibility of one for the other. And that's one of the main points we try to educate our children, responsibility. And in the end, perhaps it is the power we need to successfully confront our enemies in today's world. Because when we are united, nobody can beat us. They only can beat us if we are educated that our egoism and our own personality is more important than that of our communities, of that what we are, our identity. And if we want or not, as Jewish, we are born as Jews, and history learned us that there is no escape from this fate. So personally, I agree with Ayala and with Naomi. I don't think that the statement of the comparison of Holocaust and the 7th of October is legal. It's bad. It's not the right comparison. On contrary, it relativizes the Holocaust. This was the worst pogrom since Second World War II. It was a pogrom, and Jewish people went through a lot of pogroms. So the Holocaust was unique, and it's a fault to compare it with anything in the world. So this time, also the 7th of October was a failure which was in our hands. It shouldn't happen. And there are responsibles on our side, which has to take the responsibility for what happened on October 7th, because there was a promise to all of us in the diaspora and in Israel, never again. So don't compare. This was terrible. It was a pogrom, but it should never happen again. Not in Israel and not in the diaspora. And for the diaspora, we as a community are responsible. The state is responsible where we are living, but we also as community are responsible for the safety of our members. And we have to do everything that they are really safe in our houses, in our community. So I think education, Jewish education, is very important for the kids in one way, to show them how to be better human beings. Then the surrounding perhaps will also try to be better, and to show them that we are strong, but only if we are reunited, if we are together. And that's the goal that we have as a community in our education.
Thank you so much, Yoshua. I also remember in our previous conversation with all of us when we were preparing for this webinar, something you said about being able, on one hand, to bring the painful story, the tragedies, remember the people, remember their names, but also actively act in order to create that sense of responsibility. Well, and that brings me to my, sorry. was moved by what you said. Naomi, back to you, and we're arriving at our last third question about hope. The late Rabbi Lord Zak said that there's no Jew without hope. And I learned from my teachers that education is a profession of hope. So my question to you, what do you do? What is done in your community, or rather communities, Naomi, right? Because we're talking about many of them in Italy, in order to promote hope, in order to allow that community resilience, both on personal and communal level? And what do you find from your experience? What it is that creates that elusive sense of hope, responsibility, and the sense of agency, that even if it's tough, we can do it, right? I think all of you said and addressed this power of our collective as Jewish people, no matter what we're facing. And even though it's painful to remind, even the last year, the memory of the Holocaust brings back the sense of how great our ability as people to overcome even the toughest of times. So how do you do that on community level? What allows that to happen nowadays?
Thank you, Rabbi Vadim. So I think the real challenge is to put together our children from the schools and understanding what kind of Jewish identity we are building. And surely Jewish identity is not only around the Shoah and the persecution and anti-Semitism. And hope means really, in terms of Jewish identity, finding how do we live Jewish life, which is not only set according to persecution. We have a very important initiative in Italy, but also this is all over Europe. But I feel that in Italy, we are investing a lot on it, which is the European Days of Jewish Culture. And this is usually at the beginning of September, and we are trying to separate it completely from the Shoah. And these are days of Jewish culture where we host all over in Italy, is more than 100 places, so more than the communities themselves, all the entities, institutions, according to a theme, what Jews can contribute to that particular sector. Last year, it was, 2 years ago, was about the beauty. Last year, of course, this year it will be about the books, the people of the books. And I think the issue there was really being so happy to host people that are not Jews from all over the cities that we live in and share Jewish life, Jewish culture, and Jewish ways of contributing to society. So when you see people that are fascinated and participate and learn about Jewish culture, you feel that there is hope.
Grazie mille, Naomi. Ariella, what can you share with us from the Canadian experience? How do you create that hope and that sense of responsibility, resilience in the community?
Well, I think hope is critical, and it's certainly a key element of resilience. But we feel that it has to be accommodated by an action plan. You simply can't just have hope. My father is the sole survivor of his family after the Shoah. Well, he and what all other survivors endured really seems unfathomable to us in this world today. He's 101, and he's created a beautiful family, as have so many survivors, and that they embody resilience. I saw another Instagram post yesterday of a survivor saying that hope is the only hope for humanity, and I think that's true. In 2024, there was a report prepared in advance of today, International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It was published by the Jewish Agency and WZO that showed a sharp rise in global anti-Semitism. No surprise there. But there was also a report that showed a rise, which should surprise no one, but there was a further report done by the Israel's Ministry for Diaspora Affairs, and that one showed a 670% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in Canada since October the 7th. So when you break down the data by geographic location in the report that WZO and the agency prepared, Canada actually fared worse than anywhere else in the world. Not a stat that I'm proud of. It was double the anti-Semitic incidents in the US, and a quarter of those incidents were violent. But those were anti-Semitic incidents. The ADL recently published a global survey of and found of just sort of what it's like in Canada and how Canadians feel, and found that the least anti-Semitic country in the entire world was Canada. So you've got these two stats, and in fact, our own internal polling shows that about 4.5% Americans harbor anti-Semitic views, whereas the ADL report said 8%. So I'm able to live my life in a relative bubble, but these data points of anti-Semitic incidents are a call for action. And after October 7th, the younger generations have come to recognize that the Shoah can happen in the modern world. We need to ingrain never again as our resolve to build a better future, like looking forward. There's been a shift in our thinking to acknowledge that we may never be sufficiently protected or secure in Israel or in the diaspora. And that calls for resilience. And resilience means taking action to reverse these stats. The right term might actually not be hope, but reasonable hope, so that the present is filled with doing and not waiting for the future. Reasonable hope is bringing people together to work together towards a better future, and so that we can feel hopeful when our goal is clear, recognizing that there's going to be trial and error always in finding the right path towards achieving our goal. So in Canada, we've identified an action plan. Our prior advocacy model, we recognize, was not designed for the sophisticated community-wide movement that's now needed post-October 7th. Government responses in Canada on all levels, federal, provincial, and municipal, have been mixed, but overall very frustrating and sometimes even infuriating. Our new model, it's built for battle, and it's anchored in clear data-driven strategy, sophisticated tactics, and a unified whole of community approach. We know that the quality of our advocacy has to surpass the quantity of our adversaries. We are enlisting Canadians beyond the Jewish community in our cause, as I spoke about before, and we have to focus on shared values, interests, and threats. And we are strengthening our relationships and influence across the political spectrum. Our focus is on Jewish community security, accountability for anti-Semitism, a safer environment for public schools and university campuses, reversing the backslide of Canadian support for Israel, advocating for policies that elevate Canada's relationship with Israel. We're having an upcoming provincial and federal election, and preserving and strengthening support for Jewish life across Canada. We've already achieved some successes in our new strategy. Local governments and police have been coached on the toolkits available to fight anti-Semitism, and we've shut down extremist organizations that have wanted to spew hatred in organized events. So one of the current focuses is to make it illegal, not only to join or fund a banned terrorist group, which is, of course is illegal, but to glorify terrorist acts. And I was looking at the words of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, who said in 2011, words that are eerily relevant today, that we carry the past with us as we will carry the memory of the Shoah and now October 7th. We'll carry it with us for as long as the Jewish people exist. We say to the souls of those lost, We will never forget you. We will never cease to mourn you. We will not let you down until Jews can walk around the world without fear. Choose life. And I think hope has to be our mantra always. We choose life and renewal. Am Yisrael.
And thank you so much, Ariella. By the way, I think they're intertwined. The methodological paradox about being the least anti-Semitic and then the highest rate, I think it combines, because in places where people used to anti-Semitism, or just small remarks or words or cartoons or everyday life anti-Semitism, and I'm saying it as someone who, was born in last century in country no longer exists, Soviet Union. I remember how, this everyday jokes here and there. So maybe Canadians, when they meet, because most cases are just self-reported, right? You call ADL or you call in UK CST and you say, I want to report anti-Semitic incident, right? So in a way, maybe the sign of how sensitive Canadian society is to anti-Semitism is shown by their willing and their responsibility saying, when you see something, say something. And in a way, yeah. Very, very interesting. We have many questions and many remarks. Thank you very much. Hundreds of audience writing. We won't be able to address them all, but there's, I think, one or two questions that maybe will address very interesting. But before that, Yoshua, to you regarding hope and how do you do that in your fantastic community in München?
First of all, thank you. And I don't want to repeat all the points Ayala was stating, because most of them we are acting in the same way. And I think that what makes all communities common, if you hear the comments from Naomi, from Ayala, from myself, they are very similar. And this is a proof that we have all the same task, and more or less we try to solve this task in the same way. So for us, or for me, hope is the core of Jewish identity. We live this hope every day, and hope without action is not real hope. So whether in the diaspora or in Israel, without hope, our people would no longer exist. And we spread this creed not only today, but as often as possible. And it's a main element of Jewish identity. There's no special hope program, I think. Our way of giving our people the feeling of being a community in almost all areas of daily life and being able to live there in safety is what distinguishes us. Even if there is verbal or even physical hostility in your so-called normal living environment, once you are in your community, in the Keilah, you are safe, physical and mentally, and you can hope. We also show again and again that we are not alone, that there are many who stand by us and support us, but that at the end, we ourselves can determine our hopes through our actions, because the hope that things must always get better for us, our children and our grandchildren, is ultimately the strongest motivation to achieve a better future for us and perhaps for the rest of the world. And so, as I said before, the never-ending hope is the vehicle to the future. And what we try to show to us, to ourselves, to our community, is never give up. Not only never again, but never give up, because this is the sign of Jewishness. We never give up. And hope is in our religion, is in our being. Without hope, nothing could happen. And the bad things that we are confronted today, and Ayala mentioned a lot of figures, and they are right, but in reality, they only came out after October 7th. They were present. We didn't want to see them. We denied that this could happen. But everybody who was involved in politics and what happened in the world knew that anti-Semitism never disappeared, even minimized. It grew up, and it only waited for a chance, for a catalyst. And the 7th of October was a catalyst, and perhaps this worst happening, this worst program, was the sign for us and for the rest of the world. They are hoping like us and thinking for a better world, will stand up and show the others that we don't want to live in this world, and we won't give them to rule this world. So hope is the main core.
Wow, thank you very much. For this, I would like to take two questions from our audience, because actually our time is up. Is it okay, Yoshua, Ariel, another 2-3 minutes to address one of the questions? I won't be naming full names just in terms of security, and we know what the reality online, so not to give away any unnecessary information. But there's people from the Caribbean and Europe and North America and South America and all over the world. One of the more optimistic, I would say, question or suggestion derived from Ahmed, suggesting that Jewish organizations should put more effort in Holocaust education in Arab countries. And I would like to connect, maybe this is not exactly a question for Ahmed, but something that Debbie also wrote about bystanders, and ask you if you had in the recent year or previously an experience, both Yoshua in your community and Ariella in Canada, of interfaith dialogue or cross-denominational dialogue with non-Jews, with representative or clergy of other religion. I think for me, since October 7th, it was difficult to see that many organizations, other nonprofit NGO that we used to stand together for other causes, suddenly didn't find the exact words, whether there was women organization, international organization, LGBTQ plus organizations, and even in the UK with remarkable cooperation throughout the community, it was difficult to find partners in cross-denominational platforms. And I think it's getting better nowadays. I wonder if there's something you can share. Yoshua, let's start this time with you.
Yeah, so for me, it was no wonder what's happened. We didn't invent in Hasbara, in propaganda, in explaining ourselves. We thought everybody will know what is right and what is wrong. The others worked for tens of years with a lot of money, with a lot of investments in building a storytelling. And we stand by and we said, okay, we are only few, we don't have money, what can we do? And we left these people which were not anti-Semitic, but they heard suddenly a narrative which was only from one side. And it didn't happen on the 7th of October or 5 years ago. It happened for the last 30 years. It happened, if you want, it started after the 7-day war. And we, the State of Israel, the diaspora, the communities until today, we are responsible because we didn't invent in our storytelling. We let the others have their narratives. And so it's no wonder that the people in the universities, in the schools, which are not educated in another way, if you look at the books, if you look who are the teachers, if you look from what time these teachers came, from the 68s and after this, if you look where the money came from for the universities, so what is the wonder? So now we never will have the same capacity, the same money, the same quantities. We have to act in other ways, in intelligent ways, in communications that makes all the time the possibility of a discourse, of debating with others possible, but only with people which are not convinced to kill you. Everybody else I can speak, but somebody who wants to kill me, I don't have to speak with him. So I think it's a question that we missed it in the last 30, 40 years. Our vote.
Apropos taking responsibility, yes, not only ours, but definitely. Vielen Dank, thank you. Toda rabba, Yoshua. Ariela, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, first I have to tell you that I'm a little distracted because I was just notified that my daughter is having a baby right now. So
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
you,
About our life and hope. Oh, wow. Wait a second. You're literally becoming online Safta.
yeah, exactly. Thankfully she waited until this webinar is almost at an
Very
end.
kind of her. Yes.
Timing is everything. But to that point, timing being everything, I do agree with Yeshua that I think many people recognized what was happening over the last 25, 30 years, but we didn't act sufficiently. And no, of course, we can't compete with the resources of some of the Mideast countries towards doing this, or even their means of doing it. But October 7th sort of allowed us to recognize this in a much stronger way and gave us the blessing to say, okay, gloves off, we've got to do something about this and deal with it. I think that we are much wiser and much more action-oriented as a result of October 7th.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, our time is up. I want to thank everyone in the chat and the Q&A session who wrote. We saw all your remarks, especially, I must say, Inga, read what you wrote, painful as a Ukrainian Jew. I myself from Dnipro, nowadays, back then it was Dnipropetrovsk. After the webinar will end, I'll send part of your question to Yoshua. Maybe he'll try and we'll be able to help. I want to explain and say that Naomi asked to excuse herself. There was circumstance that she had to leave. But otherwise, Ariela, Yoshua, thank you so much. This was remarkable conversation. Thank you for sharing and honestly discussing. I think you brought a lot of pride to your communities and your ancestry. And I think going back to the idea and the sense of commemorating and telling the stories and remembering the names. And if we are the stories we tell to ourselves about ourselves, I hope that all of our audience learned from your experience, from your wisdom. I want to thank our partners, the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism, of course, JReady, the Jewish Agency, and the remarkable community of Munich, Germany, Canada, and Italy. Thank you so much to JReady. And I think, Leo, if you could, let us finish with a prayer. If you can share maybe on the screen so all of our audiences can see it. Leo, can we have the prayer? If not, I'll try to say it out loud without it being on a screen to allow us to finish with a prayer for returning for all of our hostages and for the well-being of those who have returned. Leo? I'll try to work it out from here. See it? No, technology.
So, Rabbi, also my thanks to you for this wonderful program, for this wonderful opportunity, I think, for all of us, for Ariela, for Naomi, for myself, to express ourselves and to bring our knowledge to so many people worldwide. And if there's any help needed, you can address us, I think, every time.
Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
kind.
You
So here's a prayer, and allow us to part maybe with this. And you're most welcome to join me in the language that is comfortable to you. אחינו כל בית ישראל הנתונים בצרה ובשבייה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה, המקום ירחם עליהם ויוציאם מצרה לרווחה ומאפלה לאורה ומשעבוד לגאולה, השת בעגלה ובזמן קריב ונאמר אמן.
Amen.
Thank you, Ariela. Thank you, Yeshua. Thank you, Naomi. תם ולא נשלם.
Thank you.
Bye.